Good evening. Welcome to the regular monthly meeting of the Lynbrook School Board. We can all rise. We begin with the salute to flag. Mr. Yeager will lead us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, all are present. Before we began our meeting tonight, we had a dedication to Alice Marie Bresnahan, who was a very long-standing school board member for 45 years. A very special event, and it was a great recognition for her for all she's done for this district through all those years. And as you came in tonight, and you will notice her name above this new wing, which is just a great memorial to her. May I have a motion to accept the minutes of September 1st regular meeting? Ms. Murray, second. Mrs. Danino. May I have a motion to accept the minutes of September 1st regular meeting? Oh, I thought you told me. All in favor? May I have a motion to accept the minutes of the September 22nd work session? Mrs. Hanson, second. Mrs. Marcus, all in favor? Mr. Kunz, art gallery, please.
Exhibit in over a year and a half entitled Fresh Start. This September, Lynbrook High School returned to full in-person instruction. The classrooms were once again filled with the faces of the students that make LHS so great. In addition, LHS began a new chapter by opening the brand new Alice Marie Bresnahan wing, as well as new science classrooms in the previous Banana wing. For the students, teachers, and community, this year of LHS represents a real fresh start. In the art department, we are using our new rooms to promote creativity and get the most out of our talented students. This month's show features a selection of work from the first 3 weeks of our own Fresh Start. On display are monotype prints from Mr. Lentini's sculpture and printmaking class, as well as 13 unique self-portraits from Mr. Kunz's AP art students, along with a sampling of some of this year's NAHS drawing assessments. Please take a moment to enjoy this month's exhibit, Fresh Start. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kunz. I must always tell you, Mr. Kunz, the birds are still living in the birdhouse that you made last year. Just want you to know that. Dr. Burak, presentations?
As you can see, we have quite a few people here this evening. We have a number of presentations to do. I think we'll go a little bit out of order. I think we'll start with our youngest students who were responsible for preparing a board appreciation presentation. October is the New York State Board of Education Appreciation Month. And I would like to turn it over first to Mrs. Postman, who is going to lead the elementary group as the children and staff show their appreciation to the board for all they do.
Okay. Good evening. Good evening, Lynbrook Board of Education. It is with our deepest honor and pleasure to thank our school board for their commitment and dedication they have given to the Lynbrook Public Schools and community. Without your hard work, we would not be able to strive for the best academically, socially, and emotionally. Each of you putting your time before work, during work, and after work to attend meetings, discuss issues, and make very important decisions that affect our students and families. It is our pleasure to present to you thank you cards created by our elementary school students, coupled with a very special treat.
We're going to ask that our Marion Street students come in front of the podium, and our West End students, and our Waverly Park, and our kindergarten center.
Watch. Mrs. Murray, just watch the cord. Just watch the cord.
West End and Maryland Street. We're going to begin with a poem of gratitude presented by our Waverly Wonders and our West End champions.
Who is the Board of Education and what do they do? If you ask a first grader, they may not know you.
But what they know is truly clear, you see. It is because of you we are all here and happy. Back in school, in-person learning is best. With our teachers and friends, we learn letter sounds and take math tests.
We are celebrating diversity and developing a growth mindset. We have no fear because we know the power of yet.
Thank you for making decisions with our best interest at heart. We know each of you is taking your time and doing your part.
You make sure our schools are safe, clean, and up to par. Because of your work, we know this year will go far.
So from West End, Waverly Park, Casey, and Marion Street, we wish you gratitude and thank you because your job is no small feat.
Before our students give you the cards, just like you to know that the Marion Street families came together and decided to say two very simple words, which was thank you. And we did it in quite a variety of native languages represented by our children in Marion Street and really all of our schools. So our children, we collected more than 24 languages, but here's a little sampling. So we're going to start with Albanian,
Falaminers,
Polish,
Dziękuję,
Chinese,
Shashani,
Hebrew,
Toda,
Bengali,
Dhanyabad,
French Creole,
Messi,
Punjabi,
Tuada Vandad,
Spanish,
Gracias,
and finally, Lithuanian.
Rachu.
Thank you.
Wait, one more. Terry, one more now. Kindergarten?
Thank you guys very much. Oh, this is awesome.
He needs a cookie. He needs a cookie. Over here.
Thank you very much for that.
Oh, I don't need one. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Beth. Thank you. He got one. He got one. He got one. So, do you understand why I wanted to start on a positive note? Wasn't that the most adorable thing you've ever seen? And it truly encapsulated everything that we're trying to do here in the Lynbrook Public Schools. You saw it all in one presentation. Thank you. Thank you, kids. Thank you, principals. You really are showing that our initiatives are working, and thank you for being part of the team. Now they're all going home to do their homework. Okay, the next special presentation we have is going to be presented by the SGA, I believe, and you can see that they're wearing somewhat of a uniform. Again, another initiative right here in the Lynbrook schools when we all work together as a team, right? Great things get accomplished. So I'm actually not going to say anything. I think I'm going to turn it over to the SGA and let you do the speaking.
Good evening. I am Emma Laley, the Student Government Association Slate President.
Hi, my name is Emma Ward, and I'm the SGA Slate Vice President. Hi, my name is Sophie Ward, and I'm the SGA Slate Secretary.
Hi, I'm Harrison Kirby, and I'm the SGA Slate Treasurer.
To honor those lost on 9/11, the SGA designed and sold September 11th, 20th anniversary commemorative t-shirts to the Lynbrook community. As you can see, there are many members of the SGA wearing shirts here tonight. With all of the help from the Lynbrook community, we were able to raise $2,725 and are donating all proceeds to the Tunnel to Towers organization. We are so excited to be here tonight to present this check to Tom O'Connor, a retired member of the FDNY and representative of the Tunnel to Towers organization. Thank you.
You want to take a picture? Why don't you stand in front of our
You can
back?
stand in front of the back.
Thank you, kids. Thank you. Thank you for your efforts for a wonderful cause.
On behalf of the Stephen Silla Foundation, I would like to thank Lynbrook High School and the Student Government Association for the honor of receiving this check. This year marked the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and for those of you that don't know the story of Stephen Silla, he responded to his firehouse. His company had already been deployed to the World Trade Center, got in his pickup truck, headed to the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, which was shut down. He packed 60 pounds of equipment on his back and ran through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, where he helped evacuate people from the North Tower. Unfortunately, Stephen perished that day, but in honor of his name, his family started up the Stephen Silla Tunnel to Towers Foundation. It's been going for 20 years, and for the 20th anniversary, his brother, Frank Silla, the chairman, conducted a walk of remembrance, where Frank walked 527 miles starting at the end of July. It started at the Pentagon, where, of course, we had one tragic plane crash in. Then he walked to Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and then he walked to the World Trade Center. Along the way, he stopped and had barbecues at 8 different locations for 500-plus people to honor the 20th anniversary of 9/11. The charity also read the names of everyone who died post 9/11 on 9/12 this year. He also did the Tunnel of Towers, New York City, where many wounded veterans were invited to participate. This year, the Tunnel of Towers Foundation paid off mortgages and built over 200 homes for wounded veterans and first responders throughout our country. They also do hurricane relief, which started in '05 after Hurricane Katrina. This is something that they don't even advertise if you go to their website. But I can tell you firsthand that I've been involved with every one of them. We just got back last week from Hurricane Ida relief down in South Louisiana, where we delivered 5 truckloads of needed supplies to the children and parents that were affected by this, with the blue tarps and the flooding and everything down there. We were involved with Sandy, Florence, Harvey, Irma, Michael, and this year we're going to return in December with toys for the children down in South Louisiana. So I can assure you that this check will be put to good use. And I want to thank you guys again on behalf of the charity.
I'm just going to say, So one, that is an awesome organization. As many know, we've lost several members of our community on 9/11, and Lynbrook has always done a great job every year of acknowledging that, recognizing it. We have programs individually at our schools that remember that day, so I think it's a great effort every time we see our kids giving back, especially when you pick an organization as worthwhile as that one. So thank you to you and your organization. Thank you, ladies.
Okay, moving on. Annually, we are very proud to announce our NYSSMA All-State recognition students. We have a number of students who have been recognized and will be going to the New York State Music Association's All-State performances in Rochester in December. I'm proud to announce that Dylan Baltes, who could not be here this evening, he has been selected to, she has been selected to the symphony orchestra playing the string bass. Andrew Director, the tuba, again, symphony orchestra. Jaden Harvin, mixed chorus, voice tenor 2. And then alternates, Rachel Edelstein for the snare drum and Manaka Agura for the violin. So would those students please come up to be recognized? Over here. Okay, I'm also honored to announce that Lynbrook High School does have one National Merit semifinalist to recognize for her academic achievement, and that would be Emma Ward, who was very busy this evening. I went to her senior tennis game, then she came to the recognition for the dedication to the wing, and now she's here tonight. So Emma's very busy. And then, if you saw in any newspaper article, Lynbrook had another first. We always like to celebrate firsts. Everybody's aware of our football team and rah-rah and all the good things that the charities that we raise money for, and we use that as a community event. But we also have our first female kicker on the football team. So that is historic to begin with, and watching her, sure. And watching her kick the first field goal, is that correct, gentlemen?
Yeah,
okay.
extra point.
I only do that because they tease me, so I do know more than I let them think I know about it. So I would like to recognize Olivia Voto for her outstanding kicking for being on the football team. First female, congratulations. You want me to be in the picture?
I'm not enough. Can you say something first?
You want to say something first?
Yeah. So just as Coach Lowe and Liv comes up, one, it's very impressive what she's accomplished, but I've always felt that team sports and athletics as a whole is a great way to understand what kind of character an individual has. And many people talk about how football builds character. I really believe what it does is it reveals character. And an example of that is when, in a situation we had when Liv is kicking, and in one situation where the defensive line had come through and had blocked her kick, the only thing she wanted to know in that situation was, first thing she asked Coach was, what could I do better? What could have I done in that situation to make things better? And I think that's a very revealing comment about the type of individual she is and the type of athlete she is, and it's been a real pleasure to coach with her. Coach her.
Coach with her? And those are our presentations this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Burek. At this time, all the students but Mr. and Mrs. Ward may leave the building. Feel free to move closer to the front of the room if you would like. We have two retirements. We have two retirements this evening. Begin with Lori Gus. Whereas Lori Gus, teacher assistant in the Lynbrook Union Free School District, has announced her intention to retire effective September 1st, 2021, after 15 years of service to the principal, staff, students, and parents of West End Elementary School. Whereas Miss Lori Gus has been a part of the Lynbrook family for the past 25 plus years, first as a parent of 3 exceptional students in the district, and then transitioning to a valued employee. While earning her master's in education, Lori completed her student observations and teaching experiences here in Lynbrook. Lori started her career at West End, first as a permanent substitute, before fulfilling many leave replacement assignments from 1st through 5th grade. For the last 12 plus years, Lori worked as a teacher assistant at West End Elementary School, where she did anything and everything asked of her. Whereas Lori could often be found sitting on the floor reading with her first graders during reading rotations, she was also known to share her many travel experiences with students, exposing them to varied cultural differences and what schools look like in many other countries. Lori worked in small groups and in one-on-one situations to assist students with difficult math concepts. Her humor and endless patience will be greatly missed. Whereas Lori supervised the West End Student Council for many years, in this role, she oversaw West End students at numerous fundraisers, a district-wide talent show, water bottle and snack sales at the West End Art Show, and high school lacrosse games. During her tenure, Lori was an integral part of the Christmas toy drive, as she wrapped and delivered countless gifts for multiple families here in Lynbrook School District. Lori worked tirelessly to teach the council members the importance of leadership and giving back to the community. She coordinated a special drive to distribute care packages to our Lynbrook crossing guards, firemen, and police officers to demonstrate to them how much the West End families appreciate all they do in our community. Lori worked hard to teach the value of always putting forth your best effort in all you do. Lori donated her time outside of school as well, while working on the Fly with the Owls road race for many years. Whereas Lori continued to expand her skill set and honed her technology skills this past year, while becoming proficient in multiple learning management systems to ensure that our students were able to access the curriculum and successfully participate in learning. Whereas the Board of Education thanks Lori Gus for her commitment to Lynbrook School and wishes her a happy and healthy retirement, with her husband Alan, her children Lindsay, Matt and Jake, and her beloved dog Lucy. Lori's giving nature will likely see her traveling to various countries and being instrumental in the development of new schools and providing access to clean water wells for communities in need. Living in a coastal town, Lori will now have all the time she wants to enjoy walking the beautiful beaches of the South Shore of Long Island. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation of Lori Gus for purposes of retirement. Leanne Marr. Whereas Mrs. Leanne Marr, teacher aide in the Lynbrook Union Free School District, has announced her intention to retire effective December 23, 2021, after 3 years of service. And whereas Mrs. Marr has aided the students of West End as a one-to-one aide and worked closely with the nurse during the prior school year. And whereas the staff at West End will greatly miss the goodies Mrs. Marr would bring in to share with the staff, but is happy that Mrs. Marr will be able to spend more time baking. And whereas the Board of Education thanks Mrs. Marr for her service and wishes her much happiness in her retirement with her husband, who is also retiring, their 3 children, and their 3 grandchildren as they plan their move to Pennsylvania. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation of Leanne Marr for purposes of retirement. Congratulations. We also have a tenure this evening, a tenure recommendation for Jennifer Nikic. Could you please stand up? Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools of the Lynbrook Union Free School District, Jennifer Nikic, teacher assistant who is completing her probationary period, whose services have been found to be completed, efficient, and satisfactory, be appointed on tenure effective November 13th, 2021, in accordance with provisions of Section 3012 of the Education Law. May I have a motion to accept the resolution for Jennifer Nikic? Mr. Walewski, second. Mr. Murray, all in favor? Congratulations. I also have a donation this evening. I do not believe Mr. Hammerberg is here, but Mrs. Caruso, former board member, I think is here in representation of, so we are greatly appreciative. We will accept the donation of 7 Medify air purifiers valued at approximately $4,524 from Mr. Phil Hammerberg for use in each school building. Mr. Hammerberg is not here tonight, and we want to thank Mrs. Caruso for representing him, and thank you for that generosity. Moving on to reports from trustees, we can begin with building inspections. Mrs. Hanson, can you report on the high school inspection?
Mr. Belmont, I actually looked at South and Marion Street. South was looking splendid. Everything was in order. Marion Street, there was a lot to see, pretty extensive work going on with respect to the elevator, and also inside as well, quite a few classrooms have gone through some refurbishments, new floors, new ceilings, painting, and there's a lot to see there. In fact, I actually would like to, when I invite anybody on the board to join me, I think I'm going to be heading over there in the winter to see the elevator once it's completed. I mean, I am elevator lady after all. That's what I am known for. So I think it was a long haul getting that done. That is not an easy building to add that elevator to, but I think it's a great enhancement, and I'm excited to see it completed.
Mrs. Marcus?
Mrs. Danino and I did the inspection of the high school, which took a very long time, but it was unbelievable. The new wing is just splendid. I mean, the rooms are unbelievable. The band room, the orchestra room, the chorus room, every detail that was considered, even just where we are now, looking behind us and seeing the courtyard that the staff and students have an opportunity to sit outside during lunch is great. And all of the work that was done to the banana wing, the science classrooms, all of the art rooms, it really, pretty much every area was touched, even if it wasn't completely redone. Things were, fixed up the best way that they could be. And we really have so much more space now, and it's going to be, utilized really well.
Anything to add, Mrs. Danino? If not, we can move on to the Audit Committee. Mr. Pileski or Mrs. Hanson want to weigh in?
Okay, sounds much better. On Wednesday, October 16th, the accounting firm of Noraki and Smith presented to the Audit Committee the 2021 fiscal year audit of the Lynbrook Union School District. This year, the district successfully implemented GASB 84, which is a accounting standard where extracurricular funds have much more oversight than the past years. It's a big change to internal accounting. It pertains to how certain revenues are recorded. There will be a new fund called Other Miscellaneous Special Revenue. So in case anybody was wondering, that's what they'll be seeing in the financials in the upcoming year. Also, the audit found that there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls. That's a very good thing, and they also found, even though we have a massive budget, there were no current year recommendations needed. So very nice job to Dr. Lynch and his staff, again, every year. Nice job.
Okay. The second half of the Audit Committee meeting addressed a summary of an internal audit. We have 15 different district functions. It's divided into 15 different functions, and each one of them are examined individually to assess risk and so that the district functions properly. This year, they reported their findings on IT. And first off, we have in the past few years migrated much of our operations related to IT off-site, and that has done a great deal to mitigate our risk. However, they did suggest that we dedicate additional resources for IT security, and we're going to be examining that in the coming months, as well as district implementation of privacy laws. We're making good progress on that, but we have some more to go. So that is where we were on the internal audit, and I'm sorry for being so dry. I just am reading off my notes here. And we have picked, drum roll, payroll as our next area of examination on the internal audit. And again, I I want to just echo Pat's sentiments. I've been on the audit committee for quite a few years, and they have nothing but good things to say about this business unit, Paul's leadership of this unit, and just basically having all our ducks in a row. You know, part of the reason that we get through these audits and we can really focus on things we need to address is because the audits are so clean. It's not messy, you know, and you can focus on the work that actually needs to be done. And that's a real tribute to Paul's leadership of a really top-notch business team. So congratulations again, Dr. Lynch, for another great audit.
Thank you, Mrs. Hanson. And Mr. Yeager, before we get to policy, Mrs. Marcus, you want to report on the committee?
Sure. We had the first meeting of the District Diversity Council. The District Diversity Council is made up of representatives from each building, students and parents, and I am the board rep on the council. Just so you know, the mission statement is, the mission of the Lynbrook Diversity Council is to support the school district in finding resources which will assist in building professional capacity, increasing and enhancing community connections and involvement in our schools, elevating student voices in our processes, and working together to create environments that will enhance each student's self-esteem, promote discovery of and maximize individual student potential, and guide each to dignify, appreciate, respect, accept, and value human diversity. There are 4 district equity plan priority areas. The first is developing inclusive curriculum, instruction, and assessment K through 12. The second is strengthening and creating opportunities, access, and educational quality for all students in our diverse community. The third is prioritizing student input to develop practices with a more equitable framework. And finally, promoting intentional hiring practices that encourage candidates from diverse backgrounds to apply for open positions. So during the meeting, we're meeting every other month, and we went through all of these areas, and people gave their inputs. The job now is for each of the reps from each building to go back to their building level and discuss how these priority areas will be implemented and bring back a feedback to the next meeting that we have in December. Seems like it's off to a good start.
Thank you, Mrs. Marcus. Mr. Yeager on the policy committee.
All right, tonight we're doing a first reading on policy number 1230, public participation at board meetings, in which we added language recommended by the New York State School Board Association to conduct orderly meetings. 1500E1, use of district sports fields and facilities, combined 1500E1, indoor use of facilities, and 1500E1A, use of sports fields, into one exhibit, and included updated insurance language recommended by NYSER, our insurance carrier. Policy number 5100, the changes streamline the codes we use based on what needs to be reported to the state. Those are the first readings. Tonight is the second reading and the adoption of the policies we discussed last month, which include policy 1530, smoking and other tobacco use on school premises, 5300, the code of conduct, 5300.05, code of conduct definitions, 5301, COVID protocols, 5420R, student health services regulation, 5460, child abuse, maltreatment, or neglect domestic, 5460R, child abuse, maltreatment, or neglect regulation, 6410, authorized signatures, 8505, charging school meals, prohibition against shaming, and 8635E, Parents' Bill of Rights for Student Data and Security.
Thank you, Mr. Yeager. Anything else from any board members? Moving on to old business. As you may recall, we became aware that the medical building across the street is up for sale. And I know Dr. Barrick and staff had looked at the building. And we have to make a decision if that's something we want to put out to the community and something we want to purchase. We can get into discussing, I guess, at some point, if we get that far, all the different options we'd have and what we can utilize that property for. Dr. Burek, what was the asking price at the last interaction you had with them?
It was 2.2 million.
And our options, if we were to purchase that, would be either getting it from a capital fund or floating a bond for it?
Right. We
And
would have
if-
to borrow money to purchase it, or we can use capital reserve monies based on voter approval.
And the reserve money would be part of the proposition we would be putting up. It would be specific. The proposition wouldn't indicate, do you prefer a bond or the fund? We would be specific in the proposition that we put up.
Right, the board would decide the route that they would want to
Right.
take, and then the referendum would indicate the funding source.
And that proposition would be up at the same time as the other propositions for the budget.
Correct.
I mean, I like the idea of it. I like the idea of getting more space. We have some of the least amount of space anywhere in Long Island for a school. We have administrators in the kindergarten center with classrooms. We have the ability to utilize that space now and open up more classrooms. Some of the downsides on practicality, once we purchase that property, there's probably leases in there, so we'd be responsible for determining how long those leases would be until we can actually get in there and do that. That's something we'd have to be concerned about.
So would you like me to just to report on that?
Please.
So after the last board meeting, the board charged us to further investigate it. So Dr. Lynch, myself, Mr. Sater, and the district architect took a tour of the property of 10 Union. We looked through some of the empty sections where leases were up and the property was vacant or the leases were not going to be renewed. And then we saw some of the other property where there were full intact leases. We did receive a list, which I shared with the board, of several leases that were ongoing, some extending to 2025, 2030, and that's something that the district would have to take into consideration as far as how to handle those ongoing leases in the property. Based on our initial walkthrough, it's a wood structure, and based on all of the fire codes and everything that school districts must go through, the architect basically made a point of saying this entire structure would have to be torn down and we would have to rebuild from scratch. So those were the things that we learned, and then we would design whatever we wanted to design on that space. So that was really just the overview of the information that we gleaned from that visit.
I mean, what could we do to get more specific information regarding the current revenue of that property and the long-term viability of the current leases? So if we wanted to move forward with that, because we thought it was a good idea, some of the things we don't know are, you know, how much, we don't have any information yet on the P&L of that property, correct?
Well, we did share their lease, the amount that they're paying for the leases, the taxes.
But we wouldn't know what the viability is in those current tenants wanting to stay and not stay.
Correct.
And so
We don't
forth.
know that.
Right.
We don't know their intention.
And if they were in there, so we could own that property with tenants and have to wait until we could actually go ahead. But
Right.
are there any issues with us collecting? We'd be collecting the revenue then on that property at the time.
Correct.
Any
And then
thoughts?
because it's commercial property and school buildings don't pay taxes, we would have to go down that route to see if the county and the village actually would make a change for a portion of whatever we do to not pay taxes on the portion where we're not getting leases.
But can we find that out beforehand?
Sure, we can reach out to them, sure.
And that logistically, the seller is willing to wait until May to find out if
Not necessarily. I
Okay.
can't guarantee that either.
Okay.
If they get a great offer, why would they wait for us?
Okay. But we're not going to, I mean, we wouldn't put it up on a vote earlier than that because that costs money to have another vote.
You know, I understand there are risks with becoming a landlord, even if it is for a temporary amount of time, and that would generally concern me. But truthfully, when we're talking about the amount of space we have in this district, it's shockingly small, you know, whether it be field space or building space. Right now, we're, you know, using government support, you know, to lease space at a outside location for universal pre-K. So I don't know what that space would be specifically used for, but anytime we have have some space, especially directly across the street from the high school, I think it needs to be investigated. And I would be willing to take a shot on, adding to our, square footage, especially because we're in such good financial standing right now, and this is not even something it would have to be a bond for with our, reserves so strong.
Like Mr. Paleski was saying, one thing we don't have in this district is space, and as a lot of families in Lynbrook, when they move within Lynbrook, it's to buy more property. Like, that's what they go for. They don't want to leave town. They just want more yard than they had. And certainly there are risks involved with this, and it would be very much a long-term investment, because even if we purchase the property now, it wouldn't be really available to us to use for a while after that. I certainly think it's worth considering, because we're not adding property anywhere else very easily. So I think it's something that's definitely, we may kick ourselves later to have lost this opportunity, and I don't want to do that either.
When is the last lease up?
2030.
2030? I mean, this is really us making the decision to give the community a decision to make. So it's not necessarily, we want to consider this, I think, because we could use more space, and if the community decides otherwise, then that's the decision. But the last time this came up was when the area behind the high school, I don't remember how much that was being sold for, but it was more. But this is right next to the administration building and the kindergarten center, so it's definitely, you don't even have to necessarily cross the street.
Is there a way to find out also the cost that would be to make it up to code inside? Does the architect have any idea of what that, because that would be a cost in addition to the.
When you say, so like I said, the recommendation would be to level it. So it's not rebuilding from within. It has to be leveled, because there's small offices. Not one could be a classroom or even a workable office for administration, if that's what you're thinking of. It has to be leveled. It's a wood structure. It would not meet fire code right now as it is per school standards.
Well, I guess we can get a consensus. I mean, we're a long way from now saying yes. We'd still have to go back to the landlord, give the landlord a sense that we're interested in it. Obviously, there's a lot of things that can come up. He could kibosh this the day before the vote anyway. But I think it's still worth letting him know that we're interested in it, assuming we have at least 4 of us that do, and try to get a better sense of numbers, get a better sense of the viability of the current leases, how long they're in there. If the other leases go out, if we do go, my preference would be to come from the fund and pay it off, and then we'd be collecting that revenue as it came in, offsetting it by whatever overhead and costs we had at that time.
And let us entertain a conversation with the village and the county
Yes.
regarding the tax rolls.
Yes.
So we can at least let them know. I mean, again, do we have a consensus? How about just a show of hands, as if, so we have at least 4. So let's at least move forward and say that the board met and discussed publicly that they're interested in trying to get more specifics on it and see what the village tells us and get a better sense of what the viability is in some of those leases also. Thank you, Dr. Burek. Superintendent's report, Dr. Burek.
Sure. In addition to the presentations that we did earlier this evening recognizing students, I would like to mention we have also a number of AP scholars. We had 41 AP scholars between the graduates of last year and the current seniors. We had 18 AP scholars with honor and 21 AP scholars with distinction. And mind you, this is all during a time of COVID, learning and living with COVID. So congratulations to all of those students for being those AP scholars. My next thing is just to announce our National Unity Day is October 20th. As we try to do with all of our district-wide activities, we do something in unison together, especially on Unity Day, so the buildings will be doing some type of activity, and the color of the day is orange, so I encourage everyone to wear orange that day just to show you're in unison with our schools for National Unity Day. My next item is the student contact information form. Last year, we went digital with the form. This is the form that every year the buildings used to mail a paper copy home, and parents would have to update their demographic information, update their emergency contacts. Remember when we were doing our evacuation drills and our reunification drills, we wanted to go 5 emergency contacts deep so that in case we encountered an emergency and we couldn't get emergency contact 1, we needed to go down to 2. When we went digital, unfortunately, we have not been receiving the same feedback, meaning we're not getting the full response that we need from families, and that emergency contact information is still very important. So I did have it in my September bulletin, how to go on to that parent portal to please update. So just another shout out to everyone. If you have not already done so, please go into that parent portal and update your student contact information. We don't want to find ourselves in an emergency situation and we don't have emergency contact information updated for our students.
Is there a way to go back once you hit enter? If you made a typo, is that something we can update? I did it.
Yeah, why don't you call the building, the Power School secretary, and they can walk you through. They can troubleshoot that stuff for you. That's no problem. Okay, our curriculum update. I'll turn it over to Dr. Balekis.
At the elementary level, students who are isolated or quarantined due to COVID-19, not related to travel, will be offered 2 hours of daily academic support from their school's certified teaching assistants. At the secondary level, students who are isolated or quarantined due to COVID-19, not related to travel, will be offered up to 2 hours of home instruction in ELA, math, science, social studies, and foreign language. Those services are typically outsourced to a agency, and they're provided by certified teachers. Thank you.
Okay, and our capital projects update, Dr. Lynch.
Okay, so we obviously have mentioned the 2 huge projects that are going on. So the high school, while everyone is very well aware that it is very beautiful and everything that Mrs. Hanson said is absolutely true, there is still a very extensive punch list being done. So there's about 18 pages worth of punch list items. I would say a similar thing is happening over at Marion Street. So I think we went into some detail on this. Marion Street, part of the elevator was that we had to remove the oil tank that was put there in 1986. Unfortunately, when they removed the oil tank from 1986, they found the previous oil tank from before 1986. So the good news is the district, again, I guess we have a history of doing the right thing. In 1986, whenever they did that the first time, they remediated the proper way, and it was up to code, but however, it needed to be removed. So that tank was literally abutting the foundation of Marion Street schools, so they had to, while removing the tank, reinforce the foundation, and all that incredibly complex work happened and is now completed. So that kind of put the job in the case where it is right now. So now we're hoping that construction will move at a good pace, and we do hope that, Mrs. Hanson, by February, that everything will be in place. I would be remiss if I did not give extreme compliments to the teachers of the Lynbrook Union Free School District, because when you look at this, I'm saying it's a punch list. Those are people's classrooms, and they have been beyond patient, because I guess, they see it's beautiful and wonderful, but just think about what it's like having construction in your house. When the contractors leave and it still takes them 3 months to finish everything, that's the phase we're at right now. And these teachers are teaching, and if a light switch doesn't work, they go to the next light switch, and I couldn't be, I can't thank them enough for that patience, because it's just the way things are. And the same thing at Marion Street. Literally, this construction was for a time, as Mrs. Hanson was indicating, in people's classrooms. And they also were able to just, flexibility and ingenuity and thinking out of the box. So I thank them for that patience. And yes, everything will be wonderful and beautiful when it's all done, but just like home construction, it takes time. The other big project is the boiler at the kindergarten center, so that hopefully we'll have heat in the next couple of weeks, and that project is moving along. And just when you get out, you start to go back in again. The Facilities Committee will be meeting on October 27th, and they will start to evaluate what projects will be put up for voter approval in May.
Thank you, Dr. Lynch. Thank you, Dr. Lynch. That completes your report, Dr. Barrett?
Yes.
At this time, we'll move to public comment. If anyone would like to address the board, please come to the microphone. Please identify yourself and indicate if you are a resident or a non-resident.
The issue that brought me here tonight may seem a little trivial, but it just really annoyed me. West End did not take class pictures this year. They took individual pictures outside. The high school and the middle school, by the way, took pictures inside, but West End did them outside. But no class pictures were allowed. I wrote an email to the principal, Mrs. Murray, to find out who made this decision with the hope that this decision could be changed. I do have friends in other Long Island school districts, and their kids in grammar school had class pictures. Ms. Murray wrote back to me and told me that this was a decision made by all administrators across all elementary schools, obviously Lynbrook schools. It was felt that the fall pictures would be individual, and perhaps in the spring we could safely organize the class picture. Now, I'm trying to figure out how a class picture outside is unsafe. I mean, you got these kids they do recess outside, no mask. They eat lunch indoors, no mask. We have hundreds of thousands of kids going to college football games, no mask. Lynbrook, right? We have Lynbrook homecoming, no mask. Right? The people are going to be out there, no mask. So, can someone explain to me how taking a class picture outside is putting anybody's health at risk? I really am having trouble understanding the reasoning behind this because nothing's consistent. People are just making decisions here. And why would the school administrators be able to determine what's safe and unsafe for my kid? There's no guidance. That didn't come from the state. That didn't come from Nassau County Health Department. They just got together and made a decision. So it just makes no sense to me.
So Mr. Kehoe, if you just allow me to help answer that question. I'm not sure it's going to be the answer you want to hear. So the planning for picture day takes place, in advance. And with COVID and everything, it's always evolving. So the elementary schools, as opposed to middle school and high school, all of the elementary students are unvaccinated, just by the nature of their age. So the goal is always to keep the kids safe and healthy. So they chose to do individual pictures. It was just clear that they just made a decision across the board that they were going to do the individual pictures. So it's not like class pictures. There is going to be the remembrance of their child on your particular grade. You just don't have all of those kids up against each other early in the school year, risking, and we don't know what we're risking, right? Nobody knows. This is ever evolving. The Delta variant was coming around, so they just made that decision. So that's why I think Mrs. Murray did not close the door on that, but in the spring, if we can orchestrate something, we would do that. So it's not like we're saying it may not happen at all, but as we started the school year, we just wanted to start it off as safe as possible to keep the kids in school.
All right, my rebuttal is we're adding more restrictions than they're mandating. We got enough restrictions and mandates on us already. And now we're adding mandates to our kids. Further mandates are unnecessary. They're playing outside together. We all know they play outside of school together. They're all hanging out, but it's just another thing. It's just not right to me. These kids, these pictures, you look back on your pictures, your grade pictures, your class picture from your second grade, third grade. It's just another little thing taken from them.
Can I just clarify? The plan is to take a class picture, just to take it at a different time of year.
That's not what I was told.
Well, it's not the
They're gonna
plan. It
try.
wasn't the plan. But they can entertain bringing it back. Sure.
To me, that just, I know, obviously you can see it's not acceptable to me. I don't see the reason for it. They stand there for 30 seconds with a mask down, take a picture, and go back inside. I mean, they're running around together playing outside. I know, it's trivial. It's just another thing. And
I
it's just,
understand.
it got me enough to get me to my first board meeting, so there you go. I'm just, right, honestly, I want to make the decisions for my kids about their health. When I have an administrator getting together telling me this, well, we're going to try and make it safe, I think I'll decide if my kids are safe not to take a class picture. It's getting ridiculous. But although that, and I do really, obviously you can tell I care about that, but my main concern is the mask going forward. I've watched, this is good, like with the meetings, like I know a lot of people don't come, but I know we watch them at home, maybe not that night, the next day we might come home and watch them. Lives are busy, so it is a very good thing having them virtually. And I have watched the previous Board of Ed meetings, and I do hear everyone saying about the masks, we don't want to wear them either, they're not permanent. But my thing is, like late last year, I emailed you about this, the partitions were allowed to be removed. Whoever made, you made the decision not to remove them.
The committee made the decision.
The committee. But again, now the mandate was removed, and we decided, again, so now we're implementing more restrictions than the New York State is even putting on us. We're putting more restrictions on our kids. The mandate said to come down. The signs proved they weren't working. They didn't do anything. So why are we not following, like we're adding more mandates to our kids? I don't understand that. Like there's no mandate on no class pictures, but we implemented it. We're adding more restrictions. There's enough restrictions on these kids as it is. I just hope in the near future, I'm not too confident, but that New York would drop the mask mandate. And I hope at that point the board will allow the parents to decide on whether these kids should wear masks or not. We can't say we're following science and state mandates, and then when the science is disproven or the mandates are lifted, we continue to follow them. I don't know if the masks are ever going to come down. As a quote I love from Milton Friedman, who said, paraphrasing, there's nothing as permanent as a temporary government program. So I'm not too confident about this. But going ahead, like just listening tonight, I think all the board members seem to agree about a building next door that the community should decide if we're going to buy that building. When this mask mandate comes down, and am I right? Like now, when the governor says no more mask mandate, the board makes the decision? So is it solely your decision?
Well, there's a lot of factors involved, but I see where you're going with your conversation. So, and we mentioned this actually when you watched the board meeting, so
Yep.
we've addressed this each month. I think, there was somebody who came to the microphone last time. I wanted to get into a conversation, but there's no point to speculate to that. I think if it comes down, as you're saying,
Yep.
one of the factors could be, one option will be that the governor will decide that each school district, which we've asked for all along,
Yep.
can make its own decisions. If that is exactly how it's worded, yes, and the board will get together and consider the options along with the committees and the administration on what the determination should be.
But now you said like you wanted to get the community involved in that, like to decide on the building. How can you determine what the community feels about? Obviously, you know how I feel, but how do you determine?
Well, I appreciate you being clear on that. So we do have a committee made up of members from the community, students, teachers. There is a committee that's been with us throughout this entire process, going back from the beginning of COVID, that anytime a major issue came up, they got back together when something took place, and they made recommendations to the board.
I just appreciate the answers, and I just hope that you'll give the parents the ability to make the decisions on what's best for their kids. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments.
Phyllis Caruso, resident. I just have a question on this property sale. Real estate, of course, is short in the Lynbrook School District, but we're paying $2.2 million for land, basically, because you're going to knock down that building. You're required to knock down that building. You can't knock down that building for 9 years, according to the last lease. So you're walking 9 years out, and then you have to construct after that. Who knows what building costs and everything else is going to be. My question is really, we don't know what the enrollment numbers will be. We don't know if there will be classrooms available 9 years from now. Just something that goes through my head. Maybe, what are the requirements for an administration building that's not attached to a school building to use for office spaces? Is that a possibility? And then maybe the building doesn't have to be knocked down. I know I came from Valley Stream. Their administration buildings used to be on Franklin Avenue above a bank, which didn't have the, wasn't in a school, and they were there until they moved back to Memorial. So is that a cheaper option to use the building, bring administration over from Atlantic Avenue, use the rooms over there, repurpose to pre-K, like we repurposed for kindergarten? Do they have the same requirements for administration is the question.
We would have to check with the architect. The fact, he seemed to be concerned that it was a wooden structure.
I understand that, but even for temporary purposes, if you can move some, I don't know how many pre-K are open now at the Jewish Center? How
There
many?
were 3 classrooms.
3? So if potentially you can pull some of those administration offices over to that building, if you go ahead with it, and then you can get those 3 classrooms, and you don't have to lease, and everything else could be possible. Just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again, Ms. Caruso, donation.
Hi, my name is Dr. Mohammed Ghafoor. I'm a resident of Lynbrook. I'm a parent of 3 kids in the Lynbrook school system. My son is in Marion Street, and I have a son and a daughter at Lynbrook South. I came here mostly because of my youngest son was part of the thank you to the board, and I do thank you guys for keeping all my kids safe and keeping all the schools open. But sorry, I have a little cough. But I just wanted to address some of these comments that are flying around. There's actually been in the latest, I'm a pediatric ICU physician. I've dealt with COVID. A lot of you guys know me. There was some interesting data in the latest CDC Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report where they looked at, in Arizona, they looked at school districts, and they looked at that school districts that had, mask policies. This is in parts of the country where obviously everybody can make these choices. Those districts had a lower chance of having a COVID outbreak. And across the country, they've done other data that shows that schools that have mask requirements are less likely to shut down. So, there is data to support that it works. I realize, nobody wants to wear a mask. As my friend, I had a friend talk on my behalf a couple meetings ago. I don't like going to wear a mask, but, it's what we're just doing it to keep our kids safe and keep each other safe. Looking at the data, the COVID numbers are leveling off. So hopefully, as this Delta variant goes away, as more people get vaccinated, eventually this will go away. And I also, 2 other points I just want to make. In terms of the psychological issues, I get it, okay? I worked with patients with COVID. My kids watched me go to work and come home, dealt with the fear of COVID. And, I don't think, wearing a mask and these minor inconveniences, if we all just took our masks off, our kids are still going to be scared of the world around them and what's going on. So I think we just need to keep that in mind. And the last point I want to make, you guys talk about, this building, and, I don't really have a, that's not my area of expertise. I don't really have an opinion per se. But, they're the people that make these decisions and, recommendations really at the state level, at the CDC level. I know some of these people, indirectly, sometimes directly. These are smart people. These are multi-billion-dollar organizations that have, that do a lot of research and come up with these recommendations. These aren't willy-nilly things. And I realize this whole thing has been politicized, and depending on, where you are, depends on how you feel. But, so I do, so I'll just stop talking and say I applaud that, we are following the science here, and it looks like we're keeping the kids safe, and, everybody's back in school. So thanks.
Seeing nothing else from the audience, we're going to move on.
Am I allowed to speak twice?
Sure.
Good evening. My name is Steve Moylan. I'm a resident of the district. I have 3 boys, the oldest of which is the kindergarten center. Just to start it off, I'm not a real estate agent or anything like that, but if this building is still available in May, it's not worth the price you're getting quoted at today. I don't know who ultimately makes that decision, but not that you already didn't know that, but it seems awfully expensive for what it is and for what the district, you guys even really have a plan for what you think it might be for. So just for what it's worth. I think one of our biggest failures with how we've dealt with COVID has been acting as if everyone's been at equal risk for a severe outcome. We have known from the very beginning, one of the few things we knew is that children, generally speaking, were at a much lower risk for a severe outcome than adults. And yet we've treated them as if they were as vulnerable to that as our elderly or as adults. Last week, the New York Times stated that 900,000 children have been hospitalized since the beginning of this. They had to revise the number downward 93% to 63,000. Way off, a factor of 15. But they got the scare number out there. Just yesterday, David Leonard of the New York Times, again, the same paper, not generally regarded as anti-mask or lacking for hysteria, says, David Leonard, yesterday, New York Times, for children without a serious medical condition, the danger of severe COVID is so low as to be difficult to quantify. Those are his words, not mine. Also from the New York Times article, hospitalization data out of England. Unvaccinated children appear to be at less risk for hospitalization than vaccinated people in their 40s. Vaccinated people in their 40s who are all not at great risk for hospitalization are still at greater risk than unvaccinated children. A Wall Street Journal article from July analyzing data from UK hospitalizations out of 469,982 cases among children. The survival rate was 99.995%. 25 deaths out of 469,982. That's not to say that they're not tragic, that we're callous about, child morbidity. I'm not saying that. But we have to look at the data. Out of those 25 deaths, the study said 15 had underlying serious illnesses and 4 had chronic underlying illnesses. The illnesses were not specified, but the study said that no children with standalone cases of asthma, diabetes, epilepsy, or Down syndrome died from COVID from those numbers. So I guess the point I'm trying to get across now is what are we doing this for? We're wearing the mask for who? If you look at the latest CDC numbers, like 80-something% of Nassau County residents over 12 years old have been vaccinated, have at least one shot. The numbers get updated daily. It was like 82% as of Monday. And obviously going up, gradually. If we're to believe that the vaccines work, and to this point too, we've seen that the child-to-child transmission and child-to-adult transmission is very low. I guess, why are these restrictions still in place? And what number do we have to get to before we analyze when this goes away? I know we talked last time about you can walk around at the gym without a mask on. I can go to the grocery store without a mask on. But because this is a school building, we're all participating in basically theater at this point. Who is this protecting? Is there,
I assume those are rhetorical questions.
I guess. Last month you told me to call the governor. I didn't think that was, obviously it wasn't a serious answer, but I guess we can expect more of the same. The Belgian Academy for Medicine, just last month, has recommended all COVID reduction measures be halted for children under 12, as the data regarding spread from child to child and child to adult do not justify the harms that these measures inflict on children, nor are masks required in Norway, Denmark, Switzerland, the UK, or Ireland. Are we to believe that the people, that the parents, the school boards in those countries care any less than we do about the well-being of their children? The answer is obviously no. They are following the science. We're participating in hysteria. We could fill every swimming pool in this country with concrete tomorrow. You can erect barriers to block the beaches, lakes, rivers. It would knock out drownings probably entirely. But we recognize that would be an unnecessary, unreasonable restriction to put on place for everyone to participate in life fully. And some suggest that there's no harm to children in wearing masks. I would suggest that is absurd, anybody who actually believes that. I don't believe that anybody actually believes that. They're breathing in elevated levels of carbon dioxide. There's microfibers in these masks. They're on their faces for 6 hours a day. They're being conditioned to believe that their peers and those around them are walking vectors of infection. These masks are unsanitary. They constantly touch them. They have effects on their social development. Last month, Dr. Burek, you mentioned something about we should all have more empathy. I couldn't agree more. I think the world is severely lacking in that. But when children can't see each other's faces, how are they supposed to develop empathy for their classmates? There's been a bullying epidemic that predated COVID in this country. How is a child who he's making an honest joke or kidding around with a fellow student, if they can't read the facial expression of the person they're talking to, how are they supposed to know how that person's feeling? My kindergartner has had multiple worksheets in class. One of them shows how many germs are likely to be on his hands. But to my knowledge, he hasn't had any such worksheet that explain that fruit is perhaps a better snack than goldfish. He's had worksheets that identify which child on the sheet is wearing a mask properly, but no such assignment explaining that exercise and playing outside is better for his health than watching television. We're not putting into place the right measures. I know it's not completely up to you. I know things come down from the state. So, for what it's worth, I'm just, expressing my point of view here. But I guess my question is, would the board be willing to take a vote at the next meeting, taking a stance that under no circumstances will children be wearing masks next school year? And we're already conceding, basically, that they're going to be wearing them for this. Would the board be willing to publicly, stand in front of the community, take a public stance on whether or not masks will be in any way entertained next year?
You know that's not a realistic question for the board. There's too many factors involved in that. So I hear your frustration, and I understand that we deal with this issue every month. Okay. And it's almost an anticipatory, what you're doing is an anticipatory argument. You're trying to make a presentation of views on something that at this point we don't have any say on. So you made the comment that, well, for the most part, it's not for the most part. We are mandated to have masks in school. Until that changes, we're aware of how sensitive an issue it is, and we're aware of what will take place. Should the state say to school districts, it is now your option, we will revisit this issue in the same format that you're presenting it now, with our committees and with people presenting it.
I guess the frustration on my end, just speaking for myself, is that I understand that the state pushes this down. But to the extent that the board disagrees with what the state's putting down, it's not like, well, the state's putting it down, so best not let them know that we might think otherwise. Like, that's kind of like the way I'm interpreting your comments here.
Well, I wouldn't say those are an accurate interpretation. I can assure you that what the board would like, as we've asked for at least the 15 years I've been on the board, is we want to make all these decisions. I can't assure you the decisions would go the way you want or not. That's not relevant to me.
Listen, I get it.
We want to make that decision, and right now we are not able to make that decision. And to your speculation about the future, we don't know what that'll be. I don't know if the vaccination rate will be 100% in the high school, and that will change what the state does, what the community does. There's so many factors involved with what they're going to decide. Luckily for us, it works against what we want to do because we want to make that decision, but right now, it's not there for us to make. So we're not going to put that much energy into trying to speculate, because when the decision comes, we will have to gather the information at that time and do it. But we are well aware of the passionate views people have on both sides of that issue.
And then final question is, again, I'm assuming it's not within your purview, but as far as mandating the vaccine for school attendance.
Oh, you see we're going through with the mask, and now you're trying to bring that up?
I'm at,
so again,
while we're here.
Right. Well, again, nobody would speculate on that. Of all the things we're hearing in our constant conversations with the state, that is not something they've presented to us. New York City's a pretty good view of what's going to happen before it comes here. They're kind of doing their own thing. So I think at this point, that's nothing that's been indicated to us. They're looking to make that mandatory.
Well, can we anticipate the board advising us of their views on it?
The only reason
who informs the state as to the views of the school board? If everything's just listen to whatever they say and we never provide any input, then what is the point of having these meetings?
Oh, you should have been here last year when Mrs. Marcus was constantly yelling at me for calling him King Cuomo. Our position is that they don't listen to us, and you're picking one topic. There's a variety of topics. We have lobbying groups. We have different views. But the reality is, different board members may have different views today than they will in 2 days from now or 2 months from now, depending upon what information is in front of us. It wouldn't make any sense for me to put board members in a position to speculate as to what they would decide, depending on what the facts are at that particular time.
Okay. And then my final question is,
That was your final question, but this is your second
may I
final
ask
question.
one more?
Yeah.
Is the Lynbrook Board of Education a member of the National Association of School Boards?
That's funny you say that.
Okay.
We are through the formal process of that, but we are very proud of the fact that this has always been a civil community, and it's a community that's treated each other well, and I have expressed that view to them, that in this particular community, people have always looked out for each other, they've been empathetic to each other, and our experience has not been consistent with that statement they put out.
Okay, thank you very much. I was going to say, I think we can, reasonable people can disagree.
Yeah, we've always done that very well in this community.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
I'm moving on. So going to the final part of our report, before the superintendent's recommendations, we're going to a sympathy resolution. Whereas the members of the Board of Education of the Lynbrook Union Free School District have learned with sorrow of the recent passing of Tony Ferrara, former cleaner and custodian in the Lynbrook School District. And whereas Tony Ferrara served as an employee of the Lynbrook Public Schools for 14 years, from 1985 through 1989, retiring as a custodian at Lynbrook High School. And whereas the Board of Education is mindful of the contributions made to our district by Tony Ferrara during his years of service to our community. Be it resolved that the Board of Education records its sorrow, its sympathy, and the esteem in which Tony Ferrara was held. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be sent to the family of Tony Ferrara with the hope that they will find solace and comfort in the rich heritage of good works for which he is remembered and revered. Moving on to superintendent's recommendations, I'd like to ask for consent agenda on resolutions 2110C1 through 2110C21, 2110NC1 through 2110NC19, and 2110G1 through 2110G60. Mr. Murray, second. Mr. Yeager, all in favor? We have a motion to accept the consent agenda. Mrs. Danino, second. Mr. Yeager, all in favor? That completes our meeting tonight. Everyone stay safe. We'll see you at our next meeting.